Piers Steel is one of the world's leading authorities on the science of motivation and procrastination. He has written a book called The Procrastination Equation: How to Stop Putting Things Off and Start Getting Stuff Done. It is my pleasure to welcome Piers Steel to Studio 4 to tell us more. Hello, Professor.
Hello, Fanny.
What prompted this? What started your formal study of procrastination, of all things?
Well, if I had to be honest, it was, if you want to go right back, I grew up as quite an adept and chronic procrastinator. So when I actually got a chance to study this when I was doing my PhD, I obviously kind of fell in love with it because it was about me.
Of course. And we must love ourselves.
That's right, exactly.
So, is there anyone on this planet who doesn't do it?
No. Some people might be doing it in a trace amount, so it's almost negligible. But no, everyone does it to some extent. 95% at least admit doing it fairly often, and about 25% admit to doing it chronically. That means that's a default. If they start early, that's an exception.
How do you define it?
Define it? Well, it's not just delay. You have to delay to procrastinate. That's necessary. But it's putting off despite expecting to be worse off. So if you said, I intend to do this, I intend to go on this diet, I intend to exercise, I intend to get my bills in order, and I'm going to do that next week, and next week comes around and you said, you know what, the week after that, and then the week after that, and you know to some extent that you're worse off for doing so. That makes it procrastination.
Okay. And are most of us hardwired to procrastinate?
Yeah, it is. You go back 3,000 BC, and there's Egyptian hieroglyphs, chiseled in ancient Egypt, that talk about procrastination. We found 800 BC, ancient Greek poems, odes, which have lines in there about procrastination. Then every holy text, from the Bhagavad Gita to the Bible. So it's in it's always existed, but today it's different. Today, though we've always procrastinated, now we procrastinate more than ever. Because of
a digitized world, more temptation,
More temptation, exactly. Back in 1970s, about 5% of people procrastinated chronically. The I just mentioned is 25%. And the reason for that is the environment has changed. When it becomes easier for you to do otherwise, right? When it becomes easier for you to take a break from your work, you're going to more likely do it. So where are we working now? We're working in a place where we have basically a virtual strip club, casino, and games room. And one thing that actually causes procrastination is when temptations are just too easily available. You might want to go on a diet, but if I put like a plate of cookies right there in front of you, right there, and you can smell them, you go, okay, I'll just have one, right?
Right.
And that's essentially, we've made our workplace motivationally toxic.
And there's got to be a link somehow, as a scientist, to addiction.
Oh yeah, it all runs through the same, basically, central station, impulsiveness. The more impulsive you are, the more you value immediate rewards. And it's also linked to procrastination. Procrastinators who tend to be impulsive, they tend to be more distractible, and they tend to put off these larger but later rewards and life goals. And, getting an education, getting a better relationship, and they end up doing these short-term immediate ones. So when vices give more immediate pleasures than virtues, those who are most impulsive will also be the most corruptible.
And yet, I think you wrote that impulsiveness is not something you have, it is something you are.
I know, it's terrible. I mean, impulsiveness is a two-edged sword. Sometimes it makes you spontaneous and fun and being able to react in a moment, and you actually can do a lot of great performance just before a deadline. But you'd still be better off if you got an early start. Like some people try and defend their procrastination by saying, well, I do. Well, I get most motivated before the deadline. I said, well, everybody does. Ask anybody. Ask all your friends. Go random right now. Ask somebody. Do you too feel a lot of motivation just before the deadline? They will say yes. So that's not really the question. The question was, would also getting an earlier start help? And in every case that we've taken a look, surprise, it is. Doing more work beats doing less work.
So what is the difference between laziness and procrastination?
Well, if you are a procrastinator, doesn't mean you're lazy. We find that procrastinators often have the same intentions to work as non-procrastinators. They want to do the work, and they struggle with their procrastination. They say, no matter what I do, I still keep putting things off. So it's frustrating for them. The lazy people don't have that frustration. They never intended to do it in the first place.
Okay, so those of us who intend to do it but don't like it,
Yeah.
and that's fair.
That's right.
I would much rather go to a movie, go to a fine dinner, than file my taxes.
That's right, of course. And who wouldn't? But the fact is not whether we would be bad to do it now. It'd be even worse to do it later. You still have to do it, and you get a financial penalty. But you're right. Sometimes there's people out there, lots of people, for example, who have expense reports to do. You know, they spent their own money, and for an hour or two of work, they'll get back maybe, a few grand. I think up to 5 or 10 grand I've seen for an hour, but they put it off. So it's the cost it gives us.
Right.
And it makes it procrastination if would be even worse off for putting it off.
If you talk to a Chief Justice of one of our courts, I'm sure they would tell you there are lawyers or judges who go through a trial, write the judgment immediately, have it in, not a problem. And there are other judges who are writing the judgment at the very last minute.
Oh yeah, we find
even though they're at a high level, they just aren't methodical.
Yeah, no, and it actually is a kind of a drain on the economy. We're actually doing a study specifically on Canadian arbitrators. And these are some people, for example, have to write reports. And a day delay, can be worth, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But some of them, they procrastinate.
When a government procrastinates, George Washington, Winston Churchill, what happens?
Oh, yeah, they both talk about procrastination. And, George Washington, for example, said, one thing we shouldn't procrastinate about is dealing with this, government debt we have. We got to do something about it. Every generation, of course, has been putting it off, sometimes to disastrous effect. I mean, Canada's level of debt, it's about, I was reading about, it's about 150% of most people's income. And when the rates go up, and they will, those people who put off locking in their mortgage, for example, just a % or 2 increase, they're going to be in really dire straits. So it can be tragic. I mean, procrastination is not always about the last person to take down their Christmas lights and is getting around March or April. That's funny, right? It can be about losing your home. It could be about, let's say, like for example, in the book I talk about my mother-in-law, Martika Clapp, who put off getting her colonoscopy, which again is an unpleasant thing and nobody really wants to do it. But dying of colorectal cancer, which happened to her, was a little bit worse.
A little bit more unpleasant.
Yeah.
And you're right, medical procrastination is very serious because, as you know, early intervention can save your life, save mine.
Yeah.
A colonoscopy saved my life.
Well, there you go.
Hello.
And yet it's one of the most fatal forms of cancer, not because it's not treatable. It's very treatable if you catch it early.
And it's not that bad.
Well,
trust me.
Well, still, people don't want anybody messing around down there
I
right now.
understand, yes.
But the question is that people still put off because in their mind they don't like it. And actually, that's actually happens quite a bit, is that when people finally get to the task they've been putting off for so long, they realize, well, this isn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be.
But where does fear come in? You get a splotch on your arm, it turns black, it grows a hair, something terrible happens, and you think, cancer? No, not me. Certainly not going to get it checked. Don't want to know.
That's right, and you try and kind of block it out of your awareness, and that gives you short-term satisfaction. And that's what procrastinators are vulnerable to. They're going to putting a little bit of makeup over it, not talking about it, ignoring it. That, in fact, some people said that's probably a problem you're going to get with people kind of reading your book. If somebody really needs to confront themselves about the toll procrastination is taking on their lives, well, the first few chapters goes through that cost.
Right.
And it's just easier just to make light of it and not know about it.
Mañana. Tomorrow. Every culture does it. I think every culture does it.
Every culture.
Around the world.
Hawaii calls it Napa. Scotland calls it Maffling. We did an international comparison, and the country that came out on top, and I'm not sure if they're kind of just feeding into their own cultural stereotype, because they have a saying there, we don't have anything as urgent as mañana in Ireland.
See?
Right. They apparently, the Irish say they're big procrastinators.
But they also make an excuse because I'm Irish, I know. It's called procrastination.
Well, that can work.